Well, Razorback fans, we know spring practice is happening today. So, what's our confidence level? Or, I should say, my confidence level in these parts of the Razorback football team? Well, let's talk about it on today's Locked On Razorbacks podcast.
You are Locked On Razorbacks, your daily podcast on the Arkansas Razorbacks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. I am your host, John Neighbors. I am also the host of the John Neighbors Show, which you can catch every weekday afternoon from 4 to 6 on Natty State Sports and nattystatesports.com. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. New customers, join today, and you'll get $200 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet or more wins. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. Hope everybody's having a wonderful Tuesday, as it's going to be a busy week with having Razorback baseball and basketball news, hopefully good news, and also Razorback football spring practice resuming after the spring break sabbatical. And we're going to have a chance to watch them, and we'll give a full report on tomorrow's podcast of what we saw in spring practice and see if anything stood out or anything was unique or anything was different. But I wanted to get into it today and talking about spring practice and about this Razorback football team because it's about what people are viewing in these practices and what it could end up being looking like once the season comes around. Because let's be honest, it is a pretty crazy time to start thinking about football and how good or how bad a team could end up being, because you have not only off spring practice, then you got summer workouts, and then you got fall camp, and then you got the actual season coming up. But I will say that when we've talked about the practices and talked about this team, it's about confidence and the confidence level that I have in particular parts of the team right now. And that's what I want to dive into in each and every segment today, is to give my confidence level of offense, my confidence level of defense, and then my confidence level of coaching, as well as some of the intangibles, special teams, kind of the rest of the story and where the confidence is at right there. But we'll start with the Razorback offense, because offense is always everyone's favorite topic to talk about. Defense is important, but offense is sexy. And as of right now, I actually feel confident in the Arkansas offense. Now, there's no doubt that when Sam Pittman arrived at Arkansas, the offense was fairly good in his first year. Not great, but Felipe Franks did a nice job. You had Traylon Burks. You had Rakeem Boyd for a split second, but obviously that didn't always pan out. But still, you had some pieces there that made the offense go a little bit. You were able to score some points at time. You didn't set the world on fire, but you did a pretty good job. But then 2021, the offense really came onto the scene in a nice way. Took some steps forward. KJ Jefferson was great. Obviously, Traylon Burks. So if you have a generational type player like him, you're always going to be in really good shape. You saw some young players, some running backs that got into the mix. A guy named Rocket Sanders. Even an A.J. Green. Dominic Johnson looked really good there too. And, you were starting to kind of put it together offensively and have some balance, and were able to score points. Not in every game. The offense did, suffer a little bit in some games that you really could have used them. You get shut out against Georgia on the road. Auburn, it didn't do you any favors in that game. LSU had its troubles even though you won. But still, overall, the offense was good, and it took a step forward. And then in 2022, the offense was about as good as you could ever ask, statistically speaking. The team didn't win as many games as they probably should have because of the defense being as porous as it was. But that offense was averaging roughly about 38 points a game and 500 yards of offense per game. KJ Jefferson was at his peak and at his pinnacle of where he was supposed to be at. You had a good encompassing amount of receivers, like a Matt Landers, who was really good. Jaden Hazelwood, who showed some moments too. You never had a tight end go anywhere, but you developed and converted Trey Knox into being a tight end who ended up being very serviceable there. Rocket Sanders rushed for 1,400 yards, which was incredible, an incredible feat for him. KJ was also doing some great things, not only in the air, but also on the ground too. A.J. Green was there. Rashad Dubinion was there. Overall, the offense was really good. In fact, maybe besides the times that KJ Jefferson got hurt that season, the offense, it was hard to find any complaints about him. There was definitely a huge drop-off once ever KJ Jefferson got hurt and you had to put in Malik Hornsby or Cade Fortin. But it was a really, really good offense when it was healthy. And then last year, you took a major step back. We all know that. But this year, there's so much new to it. You got a new quarterback in Taylon Green. You got a new offensive line coach with new offensive linemen. You got same wide receivers, but a new wide receiver coach where there's talent and depth there. You got some tight ends that are extremely talented and gifted, as we saw last year. And you got some new running backs and some new names there, too. But the most important thing is that you have a new offensive coordinator and quarterback coach named Bobby Petrino. I don't know if you heard about him. He's pretty good. So because of all those facts, it seems like that the offense, with it being new, is curious, is maybe scary, unpredictable, uncertain. And, there's probably an element to that. But the reason I'm so confident in it is just because you have Bobby Petrino. I'm going to be honest about it. That's why. Bobby Petrino is your offensive coordinator. He's your quarterback's coach. He's the guy. He's there. And because of that fact, it's going to be improved no matter what. I like what Arkansas did in the offensive line and the transfer portal, adding Addison Nichols, Fernando Carmona, and even a guy like Blackstock out of Michigan State. That's huge for them. And they needed some guys to really help out. Those were 3 players that a lot of teams were after, and they were able to get them. So the offensive line is going to be improved. I think Mateos is a real deal coach. I think that's going to be helpful too. Because it's either new or we didn't see enough of them to know if they're good or not. Like the wide receivers from last year, I believe they're good. I think they're really good. We just didn't get to see enough of them. The talent was there last year, but because of poor pass protection, mixed in with poor play calling, mixed in with poor coaching from Enos, like poor everything mixed in, I just really don't think we got enough out of the offense to know whether one way or the other if they're really good or not. That's just my opinion. There's still some pieces of it that I think will be really good. I think there are pieces of it that could struggle too. But the wide receivers, I think you have some dudes, some targets. You got big-bodied guys because Andrew Armstrong and Tyrone Broden, those guys are 6'6", 6'5", 6'6". I think even Broden's listed at 6'7". So you have tall dudes on the outside. I think Isaiah Satania, track star, big-time athlete. In the Petrino offense, we know how he feels about those slot wide receivers. I think he fits in perfectly with that. Even Isaac Tesla was a guy who was sure-handed in practices last year, but just never really got as many opportunities as what they were looking for. So I think even though you return pretty much your entire wide receiver core, I don't think that's a negative thing. I don't think it's a bad thing. I think it's a great thing because I think we're actually going to be able to see these guys in action and see what happens when the quarterback can get them the ball and have plenty of time in doing it. And also have a great play caller or an elite play caller to be able to help that out. So, going through all of that and just looking at it from the offensive perspective, I will put my confidence level at the Hog offense at 85%. As in, I'm 85% sure that it'll be improved, that it'll be better, that it'll be explosive, that it'll be definitely a lot more logical and a lot more understanding. Because there was times, so many times last year, how many times we went, why didn't you run the ball under center on 4th and short? Things like that. I think it's going to be a lot more logical, reasonable, understandable, and improved. I'm 85%. That's where I'm at for that. 85% confident that that's going to be the case. We'll talk about the defensive side of the ball here in just a second. But, folks, say goodbye to busted brackets because FanDuel, they allow you to bet on every game of the tournament. Whether you're betting on a big upset or a 1 seed, it's time to go dancing on America's #1 sportsbook because right now new customers get $200 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. That's $200 to use on point spreads and money lines. You can even pick who's going to win it all. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and bet on college hoops until they cut down the nets. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon. Here on the Locked On Razorbacks, we're also brought to you by eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. What brings home the winning trophy is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and to level it up to peak performance. From superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and so much more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with the eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride or die every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into an MVP that wants to bring home the win. So keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers.
You are Locked On Razorbacks, your daily podcast on the Arkansas Razorbacks. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, so moving on into the next segment of the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. We're just getting the confidence level that I have in the Razorback defense right now. This one's low. Lower, maybe I should say. Maybe not low, but lower. Because it seems like it's almost opposite of what we've typically seen from a Razorback defense at this point in time. You have a secondary group, safeties and cornerbacks, that I'm actually confident in. Like, I feel good about that group. I think you got some key players back from last year's team. I think you have some gifted athletes. I think you have some really skilled players. I think you have a really, really great coach in Marcus Woodson doing coaching safeties and made them improve. I really like what Jalen Braxton has been able to bring. Snacks Johnson is a really good player. I even like Hudson Clark, the no-fly zone, and him being in that position at the safety spot. And there's depth there. They got athletes back there. And so, ironically enough, at this point in time, I have the most confidence in the secondary for the Razorback football team, just based on experience and talent level and depth. Now, on the defensive line, which is always, to me, the most important thing you can have if you want to be a good defense, the defensive line I feel okay about. And the reason I feel okay about it is because, one, you got Landon Jackson back this year, which was huge, which is massive. I still was shocked because I fully expected him to move on and to go to the NFL draft, maybe even be drafted fairly high in the NFL. Fully expected that, but he stayed. I'm thankful for it. I'm glad he did. But that's a huge thing for Arkansas from the standpoint of leadership and of talent and of athleticism and success. That's going to be a key piece in it. But you also got some experienced guys back, too. You think about a Cam Ball, who was a player that Arkansas had been counting on a lot last year that played. A guy like a Nico Davier, who's on the team once again, and they're expecting him to take strides forward. But just to name a few, like there's players that are experienced, they're older guys, and I believe that Deke Adams, the D-line coach, has done a pretty good job where, they were going through D-line coaches like they were going out of style because nobody knew how to do anything on that D-line. I think back to that 2021 season. It was incredible that they were able to win 9 games considering they only had 3 D linemen that were even relatively solid. Like, that's why they had to run that. If it wasn't for John Ridgway, I'd be scared to see what that would have ended up. But I like Deke Adams and his coaching. I like having D linemen that are experienced, that are guys that are returning, and that are big able bodies. And, I like what they've done in the portal for the most part. But there's still a lot of uncertainty there. Depth is always going to be a thing. Because the D-line last year was not bad, but it was not amazing. Like, it was good enough. It was good enough. They had some nice games here and there. But I'd like to see that improve, but I just don't have any reason right now to feel confident that it is going to be improved from last year. And that leads us to the linebacker position, where, without question, I have the least amount of confidence in this position group right now. Least amount of confidence. You have Xavion Sori, transferred from Georgia, high-level player out of high school, and didn't play much at Georgia, but usually I've always said if it's a Georgia player or Bama player or whatever, or even LSU player, if they're good enough to be a backup at those schools, then odds are they'll be good enough to start at Arkansas. It's not an insult, it's just true. So I like that. I like that they got him. But then after that, it's like, okay, who are these people? You lost everybody. And that's what's disappointing. If you had returned all the linebackers you had from last year, this would probably be a position group that I was more confident in than any. You lost Chris Paul, which if you had him back, that would have been tremendous. But you lost him to Ole Miss. You lost a guy that Gene Thomas, which I really liked him, but ended up transferring to Wisconsin. Led the team in tackles for the most part, but then he just didn't play at the end, and then he left. Still had a year of eligibility. Manny Powell is another one. Jordan Crook was another one. Like, all these players left with eligibility, and that's concerning. You have Brad Spence back, who played a little bit last year, was known for that pick six in the very first game. But besides that, you have a lot of new names and a lot of unknowns and not much depth. So I don't have a whole lot of confidence right now in the linebacker spot. I'm going to need to see some serious changes, like some guys really step up once fall camp comes around. Because I'm telling you right now, if Xavion Sorey, it's one of two things. If he's the guy that's playing because it's by default, or if he's playing because he's really good, then I can feel better about it. But we won't know really till the season gets going. But just from what I've seen and what I know on paper and what I've been looking at, it's just a position group that I'm really hard-pressed to be confident in right now. So overall, for the Razorback defense, my confidence level and what they're doing and that they'll be improved from what they were a year ago, I may have to put it like 40%. 40%. I would love to be proven wrong, and I think even on my show I said 50, but no, I think 40. 40% might be the right move for that. At this point in time. Things can change, but just not feeling good about the defense being improved from what it was a year ago, because the defense actually was really solid last season, all things considered. We'll talk about the last thing that I'm confident in here in just a second. First, this week's March Madness Bracket Highlight is brought to you by our friends at Nissan. Each week, we're picking one team that stands out, a team that's pushed it further than the rest. Just like any of the all-new 2024 Nissan SUVs, these guys were able to take it to the next level. North Carolina Tar Heels can only be described as the Armada. The 1 seed is as hardcore as it gets out there, so it's no wonder they secured a spot in the Sweet 16 this Thursday against Alabama in the NCAA tournament. They're a favorite pick by many to make a run for the national championship. So take the Nissan Rogue, Nissan Pathfinder, or Nissan Armada and go find your next big adventure. Shop NissanUSA.com.
You are Locked On Razorbacks, your daily podcast on the Arkansas Razorbacks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, so final segment here on the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. Confidence level. I said offense, I got an 85%. Defense, I got a 40% at this point. Now it becomes into the hog coaching and the intangibles. And again, the confidence level of what I feel like it'll be improved from last year to this year. The coaching level from last year to this year, folks, I am actually very encouraged and very confident that it is going to be improved from what it was a year ago. And a lot of that hinges on Bobby Petrino, just to be honest. I think it's helpful that Bobby Petrino has been given full reign of the offense by Sam Pittman, which is the right move and a good move by Pittman. And him being able, I wasn't a huge fan of losing out on Jimmy Smith and him moving on, but the fact that Petrino was able to hire the wide receiver coach and the running back coach that he felt most comfortable with, and the coach that you have in the offensive line, Eric Mateos, I think is going to be a great get and a great feel and going to be better than what Cody Kennedy was able to provide last year. And Morgan Turner, I love him as a tight end coach there. And even on the defensive side, I mean, the defense made great improvements. Travis Williams as a coordinator seemed pretty solid. We'll see as a linebacker coach since they're missing out on so many guys. But I mentioned Deke Adams, how much I liked him. Marcus Woodson, I think, is one of the better coaches, assistant coaches, position coaches on the team. I think he's done phenomenal. And so just looking at all those, I think that the confidence level in coaching is going to be high, much more improved. And even from the Sam Pittman angle, I think Sam Pittman's going to be a better coach this year because I think overall he's going to be more hands-on on the things like the offensive line and making sure that doesn't happen again, what they had happened last year. So I think that's going to be improved. But the intangibles, like, okay, special teams. My confidence going to be better this next year. I mean, possibly. Cam Little was really good. Cam Little was really, really good. So can Vito Calvaruso, if he's going to be the dude, is he going to be just as good? If not better? Like, I don't know. It depends on how many situations Arkansas find themselves in of being in field goal position. And, there's a chance they could be just as good, maybe better, but yet to be determined. I think Max Fletcher at punter, I think he's going to get better and continue to improve. I think that's going to be fine. Intangibles, like, okay, are they going to be better at penalties? Self-inflicted deals like that, because they were one of the most penalized teams in the SEC last year. So, yeah, I guess it kind of statistically maybe you think has to be improved because they were one of the worst. But overall, I think coaching is the big part of it, but I would put my confidence level at 95% that this team is going to be an improved team because of better coaching this year compared to last year. I think at almost every position that you change coaches at, you've upgraded. I think at offensive line, you upgraded. I think at, wide receiver and running back, probably not running back because Jimmy Smith was really good at recruiting and Arkansas has had good running back. So maybe that's the one that you could say probably not. But wide receiver, maybe not between Kenny Guyton and Fouch. But there's no question that at quarterback and offense coordinator, you improved. Like 100%, no question asked, you improved. 100%. Done. So I feel good about it. So, yeah, 95%. 95%, I'm confident that Arkansas is going to be improved on that from last year to this year. So there you have it. There's my confidence level. 80%, 85%, 40%, 90%. So we'll average it out and say, I don't even know. I'm doing the math off the top of my head. Like maybe 75% sure that Arkansas is going to be an improved team from last year to this year. There you have it. Appreciate everybody listening in to Locked On Razorbacks podcast. Be sure to like and subscribe to the podcast on iTunes or on Google Play. You can also get after me on Twitter at BuzzJohn. No, that's not my name anymore. It's John Neighbors Show. I'm going to have to stop saying that. John Neighbors Show for any questions, comments, concerns that you may have. We'll keep it going from there. Same podcast time, same podcast channel tomorrow afternoon. Have a great day, everybody. We'll see you then.